Prologue. The moon was never kind. It did not care who it blessed with fangs and claws, or who it left broken, wolfless and unwanted. Beneath its pale light, blood had been spilled for centuries, alliances shattered, destinies written in fire and bone. And tonight, another story would be carved into its silver gaze. She had been born to privilege, the cherished daughter of a powerful alpha. She had grown up believing she was safe, that love could shield her from cruelty, that the moon itself had made an exception for her weakness. But the moon never made exceptions. On the night she came of age, when wolves howled and shadows stretched across the forest, her life was ripped apart. Banished. Betrayed. Left to die beneath the very sky that had once watched over her. But fate was not finished with her. From the ashes of exile, she would rise, not as a cast-off, not as prey, but as something far greater than anyone could imagine. Bound by blood, fire, and an ancient bond to a man no ordinary wolf could rival. A Lycan king. This is not a tale of innocence. It is a tale of survival, of desire, of a power too dangerous to deny. She will become salvation, or damnation. And the moon will watch, unblinking, until the very end. Episode 1, The Perfect Daughter. The night of my 18th birthday should have been perfect. The Blackheart pack always honored its heirs with grandeur, bonfires roaring skyward, drums thundering through the valley, laughter weaving into the air until even the wild wolves in the forest joined in, howling as one. Tonight was no different. All of it had been prepared for me, the Alpha's daughter. And yet, standing at the edge of the firelight, staring at the shifting shadows across the clearing, a hollow ache gnawed at my chest. Because I had no wolf. Every boy and girl of Blackheart awakened their wolf on their 18th birthday. It was a rite older than memory, the moon goddess's blessing, the night of their first shift, the moment they were truly counted among the strong. Tonight should have been my night. The fire would be mine, the howls mine, the eyes of the pack waiting for me to step forward. But deep down, I knew the truth. My wolf would not come. The whispers had followed me since childhood, murmurs behind closed doors and sharp sneers I wasn't meant to hear. Wolfless. Cursed. A shame to my father, the Alpha, who loved me too much to admit it. He always told me I was perfect, that the moon had her reasons, that strength wasn't only in claws and teeth. I had believed him once. Tonight, I could not. Sarah. The deep voice pulled me from my thoughts. I turned and found my father behind me, towering, broad-shouldered, his dark hair streaked with silver. His eyes, the same golden hue as mine, were softened now, almost pleading. "You're trembling," he said quietly. "I'm not afraid," I lied. He brushed a strand of hair behind my ear, the way he had when I was small. "Whatever happens, you are my daughter. Nothing changes that." Warm words. But they could not thaw the ice in my stomach. Nothing could, not when the eyes of the pack burned against me even from across the clearing. The drums slowed. The elder raised his staff to the sky and called for silence. The bonfire crackled, sparks rising like stars. My heart hammered as every gaze fell on me, expectant, hungry. "Seraphina Blackheart," the elder intoned. "Daughter of Alpha Kirin. Tonight you stand before the goddess. Tonight your wolf awakens." A cheer rippled through the pack. I closed my eyes. Waited. Begged the moon, the goddess, any power at all. But there was only silence. The fire roared, the drums pounded, and still, nothing. No rush of heat, no breaking bones, no fur splitting through skin. Just me, standing alone in the firelight as the silence thickened into suffocation. When I opened my eyes, the whispers had already begun. Wolfless. Cursed. Weak. The elder's staff lowered, his expression grave. My father stepped forward, his hand heavy and protective on my shoulder. But even he could not shield me from the tide turning in the pack. Wolves who had cheered moments before now averted their gazes, pity mixing with scorn. And then came the voice that cut sharper than any blade. "She is not fit to be Alpha's heir." A low growl rumbled in my father's throat, but others murmured in agreement. Too many. The ground tilted beneath me. I wanted to scream, to fight, but no sound came. My chest burned as though the fire itself had crawled inside me. Then came the second blow. She has betrayed us. Another wolf stepped forward from the crowd, holding a leather pouch. He spilled it onto the ground, herbs, the kind rogues used to mask their scent. Gasps split the night. She gave this to them, he said coldly. The rogues who struck our border last moon. That's how they slipped past. That's why our warriors bled. No. The word tore out of me, raw and desperate. I've never. But no one listened. The whispers sharpened into shouts, accusations circling like smoke choking the air. My father's hand tightened. Enough, he thundered. This is a lie. Then let her prove it, Darius sneered. Let the goddess decide. Cast her out beneath the full moon. If she is innocent, she will survive. If not, his smile was cruel, hungry for blood. The elder did not object. Neither did the others. I saw it in my father's eyes, the trap had been sprung, and nothing he said could undo it. And so, under the cold gaze of the moon, my fate was sealed. Banished. Stripped of my name, my home, my family. I stumbled into the forest with nothing but the clothes on my back, the shouts of my pack chasing me until they faded into silence. The trees closed in, shadows swallowing me whole. For the first time in my life, I was truly alone. But the moon did not abandon me. Because as the hours stretched and darkness deepened, two figures found me, wolves of a different kind, eyes gleaming with power older and fiercer than any I had ever known. And one of them would change my life forever. Episode 2, The Exile's Path. The forest swallowed me whole. Every step carried me deeper into the wilderness, the torches of my pack shrinking into distant sparks before vanishing altogether. The night pressed close, the trees crowding like silent judges. The chill gnawed at my skin, but it was nothing compared to the hollow ache inside me. Banished. Branded a traitor. Wolfless. My breath rasped in the cold, each exhale proof that I was still alive, though I wasn't sure for how long. The rogues who prowled these woods would smell my weakness from miles away. A lone girl without a wolf was nothing but prey. I pressed on until the ache in my legs blurred into numbness. My father's face haunted me in every shadow, his defiance, his fury, the helpless grief he had tried to hide when they cast me out. For him, I had been willing to believe I was still strong. But now I was only ash scattered in the wind. The silence broke. A twig snapped somewhere behind me. I spun, heart thundering, eyes darting between the dark trunks. Nothing. Only shadows. Yet I knew I wasn't alone. Then came the growl, low, guttural, rolling like thunder through the trees. Yellow eyes gleamed between the branches. A rogue. Panic clawed at me. I had no claws of my own. No wolf to fight. Only trembling hands and the knife I had stolen from the pack kitchens. I raised it, though my fingers shook. The rogue emerged, a massive beast, fur matted, jaws dripping. It circled, savoring my fear. I backed against a tree, breath shallow, the cold blade useless in my grip. When it lunged, the world shattered. Something crashed through the underbrush with the force of a storm. A blur of black fur slammed into the rogue mid-leap, teeth flashing, claws raking. The impact sent both wolves tumbling, snarls shredding the silence. I staggered back, frozen as the two beasts tore into each other. The fight was brutal, primal, a storm of muscle and blood. And then, just as quickly as it began, it ended. The black wolf stood victorious, chest heaving, muzzle streaked crimson. It turned toward me. For a heartbeat, fear locked me in place. The wolf's eyes burned silver, not the yellow of rogues, but something sharper, fiercer. And then, before my eyes, it shifted. The bones cracked, the fur dissolved, and where the beast had stood now rose a man. Tall. Broad-shouldered. His dark hair hung damp over a face carved with harsh lines, his eyes glowing faintly in the moonlight. Power radiated from him, ancient and terrifying. He looked at me like I was a puzzle he hadn't decided whether to solve, or break. You're far from safe, little one, he said, his voice rough, deep as gravel. And far from home. I swallowed hard, clutching the knife though it felt meaningless now. Who are you? He tilted his head, the faintest smirk ghosting his lips. The one who just saved your life. Another presence stirred. From the shadows stepped a second figure, this one human, slender, cloaked, eyes gleaming with sharp amusement. She's the Blackheart girl, the stranger said. The wolfless heir. The one cast out. My chest constricted. Even here, even to strangers, my shame was the first thing they saw. The dark-haired man stepped closer, his gaze never leaving mine. Tell me, Seraphina Blackheart, he murmured, as if testing the weight of my name, do you want to live? The forest seemed to hold its breath. My heart pounded, every instinct screaming that I should run, but there was nowhere left to run to. Yes, I whispered. His eyes flared, silver fire in the night. Then stay close to me. I didn't know it then, but with those words, the course of my fate shifted forever. Because I hadn't just met a savior in the woods. I had met the wolf who would set my world ablaze. Episode 3, The Mercenary's Oath. The man who had saved me did not offer comfort. He offered only survival. His name was Kairos, though I didn't know it then. To me, he was only a shadow in human form, a predator cloaked in skin. His companion, lean, sharp-eyed, always smiling like a knife, was called Malric. Together, they were not rogues, not pack wolves, but something else entirely. Mercenaries. Men who lived by blade and blood. And now, they demanded my choice. Come with us, Malric had said with a mocking bow. Or stay here, and let the forest take you. One way or another, your story ends tonight. I should have hesitated. I should have demanded answers. But the memory of the rogue's jaws closing on me was too fresh, and the hollow ache of exile too sharp. So I followed. The journey through the forest was relentless. Kairos moved like the night itself, silent, fluid, always aware. Malric filled the silence with quips, though even his jokes carried an edge. I trailed behind, exhausted, clutching the knife I no longer believed would save me. At dawn, we reached their camp. Not a home, not a den, just a cluster of tents and fire pits ringed by men and women who carried steel with the ease of wolves carrying their fangs. They looked at me with suspicion, some with disdain. Another stray, one spat. Wolfless, another muttered. The words stung, but I was too tired to care. Kairos silenced them with a glance. She stays. The murmurs died instantly. The authority in his voice was not shouted but carved into the air, sharp as steel. That night, by the fire, I asked him why. Why save me? I whispered, the flames painting his face in amber and shadow. Kairos did not look at me at first. He stared into the fire, his eyes reflecting silver in the dark. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, steady. Because you didn't beg. I frowned. What? When the rogue had you cornered, he said, his gaze finally lifting to mine, you raised your blade. Your hand shook, but you didn't drop it. Most would have cried. Pleaded. You didn't. That makes you useful. Useful. The word struck deep. Not valued, not wanted. Useful. And yet, a spark caught in my chest. Perhaps it was defiance. Perhaps it was desperation. But I would take it. After all, hadn't my own pack declared me worthless? Then teach me, I said, surprising even myself. If I'm to be useful, teach me how to fight. How to survive. Malric laughed softly from across the fire. Careful, girl. Once he sets you on that path, there's no turning back. But Kairos only studied me, silent and unreadable. Then, with a slow nod, he answered. Very well. From this night forward, you are iron blood. The camp erupted in murmurs. Some scoffed, others sneered. But Kairos's word was law. He had given me a name, a place, even if it was forged in blood and shadow. That night, lying beneath the cold stars, I should have felt fear. Instead, I felt something else, something sharper, fiercer. For the first time since my exile, I did not feel like prey. I felt like a blade waiting to be sharpened. And though I didn't yet understand the oath I had stepped into, I knew one truth with absolute clarity. My story was no longer the tale of a wolfless daughter. It was the beginning of Iron Blood. Episode 4, The Trial of Blades. The first lesson was pain. At dawn, Kairos dragged me into the clearing, tossed me a wooden sword, and told me to fight. No instruction. No guidance. Just fight. I gripped the hilt awkwardly, my palms already sweating, heart thundering as mercenaries ringed the field, waiting for the spectacle. Malric leaned casually against a post, his grin sharp. My opponent was not Kairos. It was Garen, a brute of a man with arms like tree trunks and a scar running down his cheek. He looked at me the way a wolf looks at a rabbit. Swing, Kairos ordered. I did. Clumsy. Weak. Garen batted the strike aside with a lazy flick, then slammed his practice sword into my ribs. The breath left me in a gasp, fire lancing through my side. The crowd laughed. Again, Kairos said. I staggered up, lungs burning. Again. Garen struck me down. Again. Again. Until my arms shook, my vision blurred, my knees collapsed beneath me. The laughter turned to boredom. Some wandered away. But Kairos's voice never softened, never relented. Again. Blood filled my mouth. My body screamed to stop. But something deeper, the shame of exile, the memory of whispers calling me wolfless, useless, drove me back to my feet. I swung. This time, when Garen blocked, I held my ground. Pain shot up my arms, but I refused to fall. The brute sneered and shoved me back into the dirt. Still, I rose. My chest heaved, my body broken, but I rose. A murmur rippled through the onlookers. Not respect, not yet, but something else. Recognition. By the time Kairos finally called an end, I collapsed face first into the dirt, trembling, bloodied, half-conscious. Garen spat near me and walked away. Malric crouched at my side, offering a crooked smile. Most break the first day, he said softly. You're too stubborn to die. I wanted to answer, but the darkness swallowed me whole. When I woke, the night fire burned low. My ribs ached with every breath, but I was alive. Kairos sat across from me, silent as stone, sharpening his blade. Why? I rasped, my voice cracked. Why push me until I break? He met my gaze, his eyes gleaming silver in the dark. Because broken things can be reforged. And what is reforged is stronger than it ever was before. His words sank into me like steel into flesh. For the first time, I felt the spark of something dangerous, hope. The pain had not destroyed me. It had carved me. And this was only the beginning. That night, as the camp slept, I lay awake staring at the stars. My body trembled, but my heart did not. The whispers of my pack still haunted me, but now they fueled me. If survival demanded blood, I would bleed. If strength demanded pain, I would endure. And if fate demanded fire, then I would burn. The trial of blades had broken me. But from the ashes, iron blood began to rise. Episode 5, Brotherhood in Blood. Pain became routine. Every dawn was a lesson carved into my body, the weight of a blade, the shock of a blow, the taste of dirt. My ribs ached, my palms blistered, but day by day, something changed. My strikes grew faster. My stance steadier. My eyes sharper. And though the mercenaries still mocked me, the laughter grew quieter. They could no longer deny it, I kept rising. But survival in the Iron Blood Company was not just about swinging steel. It was about trust. Brotherhood. Loyalty bound by blood. And proving myself to Kairos's soldiers demanded more than endurance. It demanded fire. The trial came at dusk. A circle was drawn in the dirt, torches flickering along its edges. The company gathered, their voices hushed with anticipation. Malric stood at the center, grinning like the devil with dice in his hands. "Tonight," he announced, "the girl proves whether she bleeds iron blood or not." Kairos said nothing, standing in the shadows, but his silence carried weight. My heart pounded as Malric's gaze settled on me. "Step in." I obeyed, the dirt cool beneath my bare feet. From the opposite side of the circle stepped Garen, the brute who had beaten me half to death on my first day. His scar twisted as he smirked. "Round 2, little rabbit." The company roared its approval. A blade was tossed to me, steel, not wood this time. Its weight settled into my palm like truth. Malric raised his hand. To yield, tap the ground. To fall, is to fail. Begin. The fight erupted like fire on dry grass. Garen lunged first, his strikes heavy, merciless. I barely parried, each impact rattling my bones. The crowd jeered, voices blurring into thunder. But this time, I did not crumble. I slipped, ducked, turned his strength against him. My ribs screamed with every breath, yet the memory of my pack's betrayal sharpened me. Every taunt became a weapon in my hand. He struck for my head. I ducked, drove my blade across his thigh. He bellowed, staggering. Gasps rippled through the circle. The fight raged on, steel clashing, sparks flying, blood spraying. I tasted iron on my lips, felt the earth beneath my feet, and somewhere in the storm of pain and fury, I stopped thinking. I started fighting. Truly fighting. When Garen finally fell to one knee, panting, bleeding, disbelief etched on his face, silence blanketed the crowd. My blade hovered at his throat, my body trembling, every instinct screaming to end it. But I didn't. I lowered the blade. For a moment, nothing. Then Malric's laughter broke the tension. Well. Looks like the rabbit has teeth after all. The company erupted, some with cheers, some with grudging respect. Garen snarled but touched his fist to his chest, the iron blood salute. And then, one by one, the others followed. I had bled. I had fought. And at last, I belonged. Later, by the fire, Malric dropped beside me with a flask. "Not bad, girl," he said, offering it. Most would have slit his throat. "You chose mercy." I drank, the burn chasing the blood from my tongue. "Mercy isn't weakness." Malric smirked. "No. It's a weapon. Sometimes sharper than steel." Kairos's shadow fell across the firelight. He said nothing, only met my gaze, his silver eyes unreadable. But I thought, just for a moment, that I saw approval. And it lit something dangerous in me. For the first time, I wasn't just surviving. I was becoming. The Brotherhood had accepted me. Now, I had a place in the Iron Blood Company. And gods help anyone who tried to take it away. Episode 6, Fire and Fong. The night of my first raid burned itself into memory. The company had taken contracts before, guarding caravans, hunting rogues, breaking bandits, but this was different. Tonight, we weren't protecting. We were striking. A rival pack had crossed Iron Blood territory, and Kairos accepted the price of their punishment. We moved beneath a blood-red moon, a dozen shadows slipping through the trees. Every breath steamed in the cold air, every boot step deliberate, silent. My heart thundered, but my grip on the sword was steady. Beside me, Malric whispered with a grin, "First blood's yours, girl. Don't waste it." Ahead, the enemy's camp flickered with careless firelight. Laughter drifted through the night. They thought themselves safe. Kairos raised his hand. Silence rippled through the company. His silver eyes gleamed, and in one sharp gesture, he unleashed us. The woods erupted. Iron blood descended on the camp like wolves on prey. Fire roared as tents collapsed, steel sang as blades found flesh. Screams tore the night apart. I moved through the chaos, my body alive with terror and fury. An enemy lunged, eyes wide as he realized I was no helpless girl but a blade in motion. My strike was clumsy, desperate, but it sank deep. The shock in his eyes haunted me even as he fell. My stomach churned. My hands shook. But I did not stop. Another came. This time, I dodged, my sword finding his side. The spray of blood painted my skin, hot, metallic. My breath rasped, my heart hammered, but I lived. I fought. Across the flames, I saw Kairos, unstoppable, merciless. He moved like fire given form, his blade a silver blur, his expression carved from stone. No hesitation. No mercy. And I realized then, this was the man I had tethered my survival to. This was the storm I had stepped into. The raid ended as quickly as it began. The enemy was scattered, their camp ash. The company stood victorious, bloodied but unbroken. As dawn bled across the sky, I sat by the river, scrubbing crimson from my hands. No matter how hard I scrubbed, the stain lingered. Malric joined me, tossing a flask at my side. "First kill always sticks," he said softly. "You never forget the face. But you learn to carry it." I met his gaze, my voice trembling. "Does it ever get easier?" He grinned without humor. "No. But you get harder." Behind us, Kairos watched in silence. His eyes burned silver, but in them I thought I saw something fleeting. Not approval this time. Not command. Something closer to recognition. Because he knew what it was to carry fire and Fong in equal measure. And now, so did I. That night, as sleep finally dragged me under, one truth echoed louder than the screams still haunting my ears. I was no longer the wolfless daughter of Blackheart. I was Iron Blood. And the world would learn to fear my name. Episode 7, Shadows of Betrayal. Victory made us bold. Too bold. The raid had bloodied our enemies and fed the Iron Blood coffers, but it also drew attention. Contracts whispered our name in taverns, and the more we fought, the more the world began to notice. Not all eyes were friendly. The betrayal came from within. It started with whispers, supplies missing, scouts vanishing, patrols returning late. Kairos said little, but I saw the shadow harden in his eyes. Malric brushed it off with his usual grin, but even he checked his daggers twice each night. Then came the ambush. We were marching through a narrow pass, the air thick with fog, when the first arrow struck. Garen fell with a roar, the shaft buried deep in his shoulder. Before the echo faded, steel rang out from above. Rogues poured from the cliffs, their eyes wild, their blades hungry. Chaos erupted. I fought beside Talia, a wiry woman with hair like fire, our backs pressed together as the enemy surged. Blood sprayed, steel clashed, screams shattered the fog. And through it all, a question burned in my mind: how had they found us? The answer came with a face. He stepped from the mist, a former Iron Blood, his cloak still marked with our crest. Koran. Once a brother. Now a traitor. His smirk twisted as he locked eyes with Kairos. "You've grown careless," he called over the clash. "Thought you could carve a kingdom out of shadows. But shadows betray." Rage flared in my chest, but Kairos's face remained carved from stone. He fought his way toward Koran, each strike precise, lethal. The two clashed in a storm of steel, their past brotherhood shattering with every blow. Meanwhile, the company bled. Garen staggered but held the line. Malric's laughter turned feral as he cut through rogues two at a time. I moved where I was needed, parrying, striking, holding the fragile wall between life and death. At last, Kairos disarmed Koran, driving him to his knees. Silence fell for a heartbeat, the battle pausing as if the world held its breath. "Why?" Kairos demanded. Koran spat blood, his grin cruel. "Because loyalty is worth less than gold. And you're no alpha. You're just another killer pretending to be a king." Kairos's blade flashed. One strike, final and merciless. Koran crumpled, lifeless. The battle ended soon after, the rogues scattering into the fog. But the damage had been done. Brothers had turned. Trust had cracked. That night, the camp was silent. Even Malric's jests died on his tongue. We buried our dead beneath the pines, the air heavy with smoke and sorrow. I sat by the fire, staring into the flames, the weight of betrayal heavy in my chest. Kairos joined me, his expression unreadable. For a long time, he said nothing. Then, quietly. This is the cost of power. Every blade we raise cuts both ways. Some will follow. Some will betray. And one day, you'll have to decide which you trust more. His gaze shifted to me, silver burning in the firelight. Steel, he said, or loyalty. The words carved themselves into me deeper than any wound. Because in that moment, I understood, iron blood was not just forged in battle. It was forged in betrayal. And the shadows of it would never leave us. Episode 8, A Bond of Fire. The night after Koran's betrayal, the camp felt colder. The fire burned, but its warmth did not reach us. Too many eyes lingered on the shadows. Too many hearts weighed the cost of trust. And yet, in that silence, something else began to take root. Kairos pushed us harder than ever. Every dawn was a trial, every dusk a reckoning. We bled, we fought, we endured. But in the crucible of pain and suspicion, bonds formed, bonds stronger than steel. It began with Garen. The scarred brute who once mocked me now fought at my side without hesitation. When a blade nearly split me during sparring, it was his hand that dragged me upright. Not bad, rabbit, he grunted. You've got teeth now. It wasn't affection, not yet, but it was respect. Then Talia, sharp-tongued and fierce, began to teach me tricks of speed and shadow, how to move silent as mist, how to strike where armor gaped. She never said why, but her gaze carried the weight of an older sister, reluctant but watchful. Even Malric changed. His laughter remained, sharp as broken glass, but when he pressed a dagger into my hand one night, his grin faded. Keep it close, he said. Not all knives come from the front. And through it all, there was Kairos. He never praised. Never softened. But his eyes followed me in the sparring ring, in the field, in the firelight. Each time I rose from the dirt, each time I refused to yield, something flickered behind that silver gaze. Not warmth. Not yet. But recognition. The bond was tested sooner than I expected. A rogue warband struck our supply run, twice our number, rabid with hunger. The clash was brutal, steel against fang, fire against fury. We fought as a unit, moving like parts of a single beast. Garen's roar shook the field, Talia's blades flashed like lightning, Malric's laughter cut through the screams. And me, I stood my ground. My blade struck true. Blood sprayed hot across my face, my muscles burned, but I did not falter. Not once. When the last rogue fell, silence swallowed the battlefield. We stood, bloodied and breathless, not as strays and mercenaries, but as something more. Iron blood. Kairos's voice broke the silence, low and steady. You've earned your place, he said. His gaze swept over us, but when it met mine, it lingered. All of you. The company raised their fists to their chests, one by one, the salute of Brotherhood. I joined them, the gesture unfamiliar yet fierce in my bones. And for the first time since exile, I felt it, not just survival. Not just defiance. Belonging. That night, by the fire, I sat among them not as an outcast but as one of their own. Laughter returned, ragged but real. Scars were compared, jests traded, flasks passed around until the taste of blood faded into something almost like joy. Malric leaned close, voice low. Careful, girl. You keep this up, and you'll start to believe you actually matter to us. I smirked, surprising even myself. Maybe I already do. And as the flames flickered in Kairos's silver eyes, I realized something dangerous. This company was no longer just survival. It was family. And I would burn the world to keep it. Episode 9, The Alpha's Shadow. Word of Ironblood's growing strength spread faster than wildfire. With each raid, each victory, whispers carried our name into taverns, courts, and packs alike. Some called us mercenaries. Others, rebels. But all agreed on one thing: where iron blood walked, death followed. And death had a way of drawing attention. It was during a storm that he came. The rain hammered the camp, turning dirt to mire, flames to smoke. I was sharpening my blade when the alarm rang out. By the time I reached the gates, the company was already bristling with steel. A lone figure stood at the edge of the firelight. Cloaked. Still. Watching. Kairos stepped forward, silver eyes gleaming through the rain. "Show yourself." The figure obeyed. He lowered his hood, revealing hair white as bone, eyes the color of fresh blood. His smile was slow, deliberate, sharp as a knife. "Kairos," he said, his voice like velvet over steel. "Still hiding among mongrels and strays, I see." Murmurs rippled through the company. I had never seen Kairos flinch, not once. But his jaw tightened now, his hand curling slightly around the hilt of his sword. "Dorian," he said. "You shouldn't be here." The man laughed, low and cruel. "And yet here I am. Did you think you could build an empire of cutthroats without drawing the Alpha's eye? The throne watches, brother. Always. Brother." The word sliced deeper than any blade. Malric cursed under his breath. Garen's grip on his axe whitened. I stared between them, confusion twisting in my chest. Kairos never spoke of his past. Never spoke of family. But here it was, standing in the rain, a living shadow cast over everything he had built. Dorian's gaze slid over the company, lingering on me. His smile widened. "And what's this? A wolfless pup pretending to be a wolf. How quaint." Rage surged hot in my veins, but Kairos's voice cut through before I could speak. "Leave her out of this," he said, steel beneath the calm. Dorian chuckled. "Protective, are we? Careful, brother. Attachments make men weak. You, of all people, should know that." For a heartbeat, the storm itself seemed to hold still, thunder rumbling in the distance like a warning. Then Dorian turned, his cloak snapping in the wind. "The Alpha has heard your name, Kairos. He knows you're building something dangerous. Consider this your only warning. Bend the knee, or be broken." With that, he vanished into the storm, leaving only silence in his wake. The company buzzed with whispers long into the night, but Kairos offered no answers. He sat apart, silver eyes fixed on the fire, the rain streaking down his face like shadows. I wanted to ask. I wanted to demand the truth about Dorian, about the Alpha's warning. But something in Kairos's expression stopped me. It was the first time I had ever seen him look haunted. And I knew then, whatever shadow his brother cast, it would not fall on him alone. It would fall on all of us. Episode 10, Blades in the Dark. After Dorian's visit, sleep abandoned the camp. Every creak of leather, every whisper of wind through the trees felt like the edge of a blade waiting to strike. The company became restless wolves, teeth bared, eyes scanning the shadows. And it wasn't long before the shadows struck back. It happened on a moonless night. I was on watch, the forest around me silent except for the chirp of insects. The fire burned low, embers glowing faint against the dark. Then, in the space of a breath, the world shifted. A rustle. A flicker of movement. Then steel flashed. The first mercenary fell before he could cry out. His throat opened in a red smile, his body crumpling into the dirt. Shadows poured into the camp, cloaked assassins with blades black as night. "Up! Wake up!" I screamed, slashing at the first that lunged for me. Sparks sprayed as steel met steel. The camp erupted. Men and women scrambled for weapons, half-dressed, blood already pooling at their feet. Garen roared like a beast, swinging his axe in wide arcs that split bodies in two. Talia's daggers flashed like lightning. Malric's laughter rang sharp, feral, as he fought with twin blades, cutting through assassins as though dancing with them. And then came Kairos. He moved through the chaos like a storm made flesh. Every strike was precise, every kill deliberate, his silver eyes burning with cold fury. The assassins fell before him as though death itself had taken form. But there were too many. I fought desperately, parrying blow after blow, the weight of each strike jarring my bones. My arms burned, my lungs screamed. Blood blurred my vision, but still I stood, refusing to fall. An assassin drove me back, his blade grazing my cheek. I stumbled, then Garen's axe split the man's skull before he could finish me. "Stay sharp, rabbit," he roared. The battle raged until the last assassin collapsed into the dirt, his body joining the heap of the dead. Silence returned, heavy and suffocating, broken only by the crackle of fire and the labored breaths of the survivors. Dozens of iron blood lay dead. More wounded. The camp reeked of blood and smoke. Kairos stood in the center of it all, his sword dripping crimson, his jaw set like stone. His gaze swept the carnage before landing on me. "They weren't rogues," he said. His voice was low, hard. "They were trained. Sent." The name hung in the air like a curse. Dorian. That night, as the bodies were burned, I sat apart, my hands trembling despite the blood I had washed away. The firelight flickered across Kairos's face as he watched the flames consume the dead. "They'll keep coming," I whispered, my voice raw. "Yes," he said simply. "Until one of us is ash." His words should have terrified me. Instead, they ignited something deeper. The bond of fire, the brotherhood in blood, it was no longer enough to survive. We would have to fight not just as mercenaries, but as something greater. Because the Alpha's shadow had fallen on us. And shadows can only be burned away by fire. Episode 11, Oath of Iron. The pyres burned all night. Black smoke coiled into the sky, carrying with it the names of brothers and sisters we would never speak again. The stench of scorched flesh clung to the camp, seeping into our clothes, our hair, our very skin. Iron blood had been wounded. But wounds could be reforged into scars, and scars into weapons. Kairos knew this better than anyone. At dawn, he summoned us to the clearing. Rain still dampened the earth, mud sucking at our boots. The survivors stood in silence, bloodied, hollow-eyed. Malric leaned on his blades, Garen's chest was bandaged tight, Talia's arm hung in a sling. Kairos's silver gaze swept across us, and for the first time, he spoke not as a mercenary commander, but as something more. "We were hunted in the dark," he said, his voice sharp as steel on stone. "Our brothers slain. Our sisters cut down. They thought we would scatter. They thought fear would break us." He paused, letting the silence bite. "But iron blood does not scatter. Iron blood does not break." His hand rose, fist clenched. "Every drop of blood spilled tonight is an oath. An oath that we will rise stronger, harder, unyielding." A murmur rippled through the company, faint at first, then louder as fists slammed against chests in unison. The iron blood salute echoed like thunder. Kairos's gaze locked on mine. His words burned into me as though meant for me alone. "They want us to kneel," he said. "But we are not theirs to command. We are not pawns. We are iron blood. And we will carve our names into their bones." The clearing erupted in a roar, voices united, fierce enough to shake the trees. For the first time, I felt not just belonging, but purpose. That night, Malric tossed me a flask by the fire, his grin softer than usual. "Congratulations, girl. You're bound to us now. No turning back." I smirked, taking a long drink. "I wasn't planning to." Talia leaned against Garen, exhaustion softening her edges. "She'll be one of us yet. Even if she still fights like she's trying to impress Kairos." Heat flushed my cheeks, though I said nothing. Kairos's shadow stretched long across the fire, silent, unyielding. Later, when most had fallen asleep, I found him standing alone at the edge of camp, watching the stars. The silver in his eyes seemed to burn brighter than the fire behind him. "You spoke like a king today," I said quietly. He didn't turn. "Kings sit on thrones. I stand in blood." "Maybe there's no difference," I whispered. His jaw tightened, but he said nothing. The silence between us was heavy, charged, like the stillness before lightning strikes. And in that silence, I realized what bound us together was no longer just survival. It was an oath. Forged in pain. Tempered in betrayal. Sealed in fire. The Oath of Iron. Episode 12, Wolves at the Gate. The oath bound us, but oaths alone don't keep enemies at bay. And ours were already circling. News of the assassin spread fast. Whispers of iron blood weakness carried on the wind, drawing predators from every corner of the realm. Packs that once ignored us now saw opportunity. Rivals sniffed blood. Rogues gathered like vultures. It wasn't long before the first siege began. They came at dawn, hundreds of them. Wolves bearing the crest of the Blackfang pack, their howls rolling over the hills like thunder. The earth shook beneath their charge, and for the first time, I saw fear flicker across even Garen's scarred face. But Kairos didn't flinch. He stood on the ridge, silver eyes alight with fire, his voice carrying over the roar of the enemy. Hold the line. Iron blood does not break. The company braced, shields locked, blades raised. My heart thundered, breath ragged, but my grip was steady. The first wave hit like a storm. Steel clashed, claws raked, blood sprayed. The air filled with screams and the thunder of war. I fought shoulder to shoulder with Talia, our blades flashing in deadly rhythm. Garen's axe cleaved through enemies like trees. Malric danced among them, laughing, his daggers red with every turn. But the enemy was endless. For every wolf that fell, two more surged forward. We were drowning in them, the line buckling under their weight. Push! Kairos roared. His blade struck like lightning, cutting down foes with terrifying precision. Wherever he moved, iron blood rallied, the tide shifting. I felt it too, that fire, that fury. The memory of exile burned away, replaced by something sharper. This wasn't survival anymore. This was defiance. I struck harder, faster, carving a path through blood and chaos. Then the Blackfang Alpha appeared. A beast of a man, his wolf form towering, fur bristling black as midnight. His roar shook the field as he tore through our front line, scattering soldiers like leaves. Kairos met him head-on. The clash was titanic, steel against Fang, fury against fury. The ground split beneath their blows, sparks and blood mingling in the dawn light. I watched, breathless, as Kairos fought not just as a mercenary but as something greater. Something the enemy Alpha had not expected. He fought like a king. And when his blade finally found the beast's throat, silence rolled across the battlefield. The Blackfang wolves froze, their alpha crumpling into the dirt. Kairos raised his sword, dripping crimson. Leave, he thundered. Or join him. The enemy broke. Panic rippled through their ranks, and within minutes, the hill was ours. The survivors fled, howls fading into the distance. The company stood victorious, but bloodied, broken, half its strength left in the dirt. That night, as we buried our dead, I found myself staring at Kairos across the fire. His face was unreadable, his hands still stained with the Alpha's blood. You killed him, I whispered. An Alpha. His gaze lifted to mine, silver burning. And there will be more. The truth sank into me like a blade. Iron Blood was no longer just a mercenary band. With every battle, every victory, every oath, we were becoming something else. Something larger. We weren't just fighting for gold. We were fighting for power. And power always draws wolves to the gate. Episode 13, Blood Ties. The battlefield still reeked of blood when the questions began. How had the Black Fangs found us so quickly? Why risk open war against a mercenary band, unless someone had pointed them straight at our camp? The whispers spread through the company like rot. Betrayal was a wound we had already bled from once, and none of us had forgotten the cost. And all the whispers pointed back to Kairos. It wasn't his command they doubted, it was his blood. Dorian's appearance had left scars deeper than steel. The men and women who would follow Kairos into fire still wondered what it meant, that the Iron Blood commander was brother to the Alpha's enforcer. Some called it fate. Others, a curse. But all agreed, blood ties cut both ways. That night, around the fire, Malric finally said what others only dared whisper. Your brother's shadow grows longer, Kairos. How long before it swallows us whole? The company stilled. Garen shifted uneasily. Talia's gaze flicked between them. I held my breath. Kairos didn't answer right away. He sat in silence, sharpening his blade, the rasp of steel on stone sharp in the still night. Then, finally, he lifted his gaze. My brother chose his path. I chose mine. And if blood ties mean anything, it's that I know exactly how far he will go to destroy us. Or to use us, Malric muttered. The silver in Kairos's eyes burned hotter, but his voice stayed cold. If he comes, he will not find a brother. He will find a blade. The firelight flickered across his face, casting it half in light, half in shadow. And in that moment, I saw it, the war inside him. Not between love and hate, but between duty and blood. Later, as the camp slept, I found Kairos alone on the ridge, staring into the night. Is it true? I asked quietly. That he's your blood? He didn't look at me. Yes. And does it matter? Finally, his gaze slid to mine, silver burning with something I couldn't name. It matters because men will make it matter. They will doubt. They will fear. And fear is the sharpest blade of all. I swallowed. Do you fear him? A long silence. Then, softly, no. But I fear what I'll have to become to stop him. The words settled heavy between us, heavier than any oath. The next morning, the company marched on, blades sharper, hearts harder. But the air was different now. Every look carried suspicion, every silence weighed with questions. Blood ties had been named. And blood ties, once spoken, could not be undone. Episode 14, Ashes and Chains. The victory against Blackfang should have given us time to breathe. Instead, it brought chains. Not the kind forged of iron, but of politics, gold, and whispers. And those can strangle tighter than steel ever could. We were summoned to Ravenspire, the great city at the heart of the kingdom. Its spires clawed at the sky, banners snapping crimson against stone. To most, it was a place of glory. To Iron Blood, it was a cage. The Council of Lords had taken notice. And when men with power notice, they do not come with gifts. They come with shackles. We entered the hall, a cavern of marble and gold, lined with men and women fat on silk and pride. Their eyes followed us like hawks as we marched across the floor, our boots too loud against the polished stone. At their center sat Lord Varenth, head of the council, a man with a smile sharp enough to cut flesh without leaving a mark. You've made quite the noise, he said, his voice smooth as oil. Iron blood this, iron blood that. Mercenaries carving their own throne. Even alphas whisper your name. He leaned forward, smile widening. That cannot be tolerated. Kairos's jaw tightened. We do not seek thrones. We fight for coin, nothing more. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Asel's words lie, Varenth said. You've slain an alpha. You rally wolves to your banner. You may not seek a throne, but a throne will come to you all the same. Chains. Every word he spoke was a chain, tightening around us. The council's decree was simple, bend the knee. Swear Iron Blood's loyalty to the crown. Become their weapon, or be declared outlaws. The choice was no choice at all. That night, in the chambers they granted us, Malric paced like a caged wolf. Outlaws? Ha! We already are. But bowing? Never. Garen slammed a fist into the wall. We'd be their dogs. Sent to die for their wars. Talia's voice was sharp as her knives. And if we refuse, they'll hunt us. With armies, not just rogues. Silence fell, heavy and suffocating. All eyes turned to Kairos. He stood at the window, silver eyes reflecting the city lights below. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, steady, unyielding. They think they hold chains over us. But chains can be broken. He turned, gaze burning. We will not kneel. Not to wolves. Not to lords. Not to kings. Iron blood bends to no one. The word struck like fire through dry grass, igniting every soul in the room. For better or worse, the path was chosen. When dawn came, we left Ravenspire not as mercenaries, but as rebels. The council had declared us enemies of the crown. And so Iron Blood carried two truths. We were free. And we were hunted. Ashes trailed behind us as the city's gates closed. Chains snapped in our wake. But every broken chain is a promise of war. Episode 15, Crown of Shadows. Freedom came at the cost of blood. And now the crown wanted ours. The decree spread like wildfire, Iron Blood was outlawed. Bounties hung in every city, our names scrawled on parchment stained with wax and fear. Mercenaries who once sought us out now hunted us for coin. Packs that had called us brothers turned away. We had no allies left. Only enemies. And yet, we did not scatter. We sharpened. The attack came at dusk. The council's hunters struck swift and merciless, armored knights bearing banners of crimson flame, backed by wolves in gleaming mail. They descended on our encampment with steel, fire, and the weight of law. But Iron Blood had been forged in war. The clash was thunder and fire. Garen roared as he split a knight in half, his axe ringing like a war drum. Talia darted through the melee, her daggers flashing silver in the chaos. Malric's laughter echoed wild and sharp as he cut throats with every spin of his blades. And Kairos was death given form. He fought at the center of it all, his silver eyes glowing in the firelight, his blade cutting a path through knights and wolves alike. I fought at his side, my heart pounding, my body alive with terror and fury. Steel met steel, blood sprayed hot across my skin. Every strike, every breath, carried the weight of exile and belonging, of loss and fire. I was no longer the wolfless girl. I was Iron Blood, and I would not break. But the crown had sent more than hunters. Through the chaos, a figure emerged, tall, cloaked, crowned not with gold but with bone. His presence silenced the battlefield, his eyes burning red beneath the hood. Dorian. Kairos froze, his blade dripping crimson, his chest heaving. The two brothers locked eyes across the field, and in that silence, the truth became undeniable. This was not just war for survival. It was war for blood. Dorian's voice rolled across the battlefield like thunder. You've built yourself a kingdom of ashes, brother. And tonight, I burn it to the ground. The clash that followed was cataclysmic. Steel screamed against steel, sparks and shadows colliding in the dusk. The company fought around them, but all eyes were drawn to the brothers, their blades a storm, their fury a crown of shadows hanging over us all. I struck down an enemy and stumbled back, my chest heaving, my gaze fixed on them. Kairos bled. Dorian bled. Neither yielded. Their battle was more than a fight, it was prophecy written in blood. And I knew, with bone-deep certainty, that this was only the beginning. The world had seen mercenaries. The world had seen wolves. But now the world would see kings. And only one would rise.